What is up? It is the Fit Gear Hunter, and today I have got a crazy review, and it is going to be a simple deconstruction of breaking down all of the different Garmin lineups for their baseline features and benefits that would benefit somebody in a harder training program looking for a prettier screen, having a smaller wrist, and wanting that full rigor all in one. Everything is offered. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. And I will say, a subscriber asked about, what about this watch or that watch? Because there's been so many Garmin releases. And as I began to back up and look at all the watches that Garmin offers and all the features and benefits offered, I just started to think, good Lord, there are a lot of Garmin devices, and I do believe Garmin is the industry leader, the current king of the hill when it comes to all the features and all the benefits, at least that you can find everything all in one place. And so that brings about a challenge. If Garmin's like an industry leader and they do a bunch of different cool things that not everybody does, or maybe they do a little bit, somebody else does one pocket but not all the other things, it really becomes a challenge to figure out what would be the best device, or what includes everything, and what includes some of the things, and what would we not get if we went for this one thing because you like this one sort of design or feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to break down the Garmin lineup. Now, I'll say at the outset, there's no way this can be accurate with all of the details. I might miss something. Please don't get upset, or just please clarify in the comments in case I do miss something, because the most recent introductions of watches like the Instinct 2 really launched a differentiation between some of the past watches and the current watches, because the Instinct 2 has the full feature set and a lot of different elements that the Instinct 1 did not have and does not have. So I'm going to break it down into two simple things: health and wellness, and workouts and training. So when you think about, everything on this channel is for tracking and testing devices for the purpose of CrossFit or high intensity interval training versus all the running, swimming, and biking videos that are out there. When you think about those two primary elements, having the core functional features for health and wellness and for training and recovery, those are primary bits. And I want to break down like what options exist if you're in the market for buying a new Garmin watch. And then you go to the website and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's watches that are cheap, there's watches that are crazy expensive. How do I break it down? So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify the primary wellness and training benefits into three categories. So there's body battery, which is heart rate variability, although it's not spelled out as a heart rate variability number, but it's broken down as far as how your stress is affecting your day and how much energy you might have to approach the next hard workout. Sleep and sleep score, and then training dynamics. And then last, a sort of a side piece, we're going to basically look at all-in-one catch-all, or sort of break down a bunch of benefits. So we're going to look at each one. We'll look at the body battery features, like what it is, and then we're going to talk about what watches have it, the sleep features, what it is, and sleep score, and the training dynamics, and on the app, and then we'll talk about what it is. So what I'm going to cover is not the entire lineup. So I'm not going to cover some of the odd, or basically just not going to cover any of the specialty watches, specifically the Lily watch, the Vivo Smart, which is a little bit dated, the Vivo Move, some of the specialty bigger watches like the Tactics or the dive watches under the Descent name, the Quantix, which is like a sailing watch, the Delta, which is special forces type of watch, the Mark collection, which is the fancy watches, the golf approach watches, and the swim watches. So we're not going to get into those nuances, but what I want to say is if you want to understand what it would be that you're getting, you're like, wow, that looks really cool. Does it have all these features? The simple direction is just to go to the specs page. So when you go onto the landing site, it'll say overview. It'll have a bunch of pretty pictures and it'll spell out the benefits, but it doesn't tell you what it's not getting. And so you could go to the specifications tab and it's got the laundry list of things. And even better than that is when you get to the main all wearables and smartwatches landing page of the Garmin website, in the top left corner, not in the left column, but in the top left corner above the watch pictures, it'll say compare. And you can compare up to 4 devices to see and what is coming with the watch that you have an interest in and what is not. You can say show only the differences so you can see what is there and what isn't there. And that's where you can break down, do some of these oddball, does the Lily have this or that? And you can get some of the features and benefits there, some awareness of what features come on the watch you're interested in, compare it to some of the top of the line and see what you're missing. All of those types of things. So go to the specs page. What we are going to cover is I'm going to talk about the VivoActive 4, Instinct 1 and 2, the Forerunner series. Not going to touch as much on the 55, but we will mention it. Not going to touch as much on the 645 because it's basically gone, it's out of date, and it's not around really, and it's missing some features. The 245, 745, 945, 945 LTE, the Fenix series of watches, including the 6 and the 7, the Epix, and sort of touch on the Enduro because it gets sort of lumped in there. So we're going to start with these most simple aspects that are on a lot of primary watches and the body battery. We're going to talk about the next level of health, which is the sleep and now sleep score, which is offered on a number of watches. And we're going to finish with the most complex, which is the training aspects, and then we'll do that sort of catch-all. So let's look at what body battery is and talk about what watches have it. All right, so what is body battery, you ask? It's right down here, and it is a combination of your stress score across the day. So the way First Beat developed this analytic was they do an all-time heart rate variability tracking, which is a determination of stress and your recovered state, determination of all these things, and they translated it to a stress score. Now those colors you see, that's the stress at different times, and the blue is really good, the orange is not really good, and the higher up it goes, the worse it is. And so the stress has an effect on your overall resources internally. So you can see that when I slept, my resources regenerated, and when I was busy in the day or carrying a lot of stuff to do, then they deplete. And so you can see your body battery depleting over time. But what you will also see in this is you will see significant sickness coming on. You'll actually see when you're sick, and you'll see when you start to get better because your heart rate variability will stabilize and your stress will lower, but your body is under significant stress and it will show it in the body battery depletion over time. So you can see just, I tend to not get great amounts of sleep, don't have great regeneration, but either way, it doesn't always hit fully 100 unless you are really calm, really good day, and you also get really great sleep. But the body battery is something that you can see and track to determine another physiological impact of the sleep on your sleep quality on your regeneration and rejuvenation, and it's also a determinant for how a really stressful day coupled with a slight cold has an effect. And I have been sick at times and I will see it not regenerate at all. So like I had it wasn't COVID, but a significant sickness last February, and it just stayed at 0. Actually, the lowest score is a 5, but it just stayed at 5. And then before I completely started to feel better, I saw it start to regenerate. And then the sickness symptoms sort of started to subside almost after that. So you can see the beginning of a sickness, you'll see the sickness when you have it in full, and the disappearance or the dissipation of sickness. So that is what body battery is. You can see it, at any point in time. When you go into the landing page, you'll see what it is right there. So you can see really clearly body battery, and having tracked a bunch of watches, I do think that body battery is one of the most awesome pieces. Now it doesn't, for some reason, some people aren't getting the readings on the stress which flows into body battery based on skin type or tattoos or things like that. And so I have had some subscribers say it doesn't work for them, but the majority of us that have sort of been using Garmin devices for a long time, the body battery is an awesome metric at evaluating your internal reserves, but more than that, evaluating your internal health and your internal overall capacity for a hard workout, your onset of sickness, your drinking of too much alcohol. It shows all of it. And versus some of the others in the industry that are doing heart rate variability tracking, Garmin's the only one that's basically trying to approach 24/7 heart rate variability tracking. Again, it doesn't give you a heart rate variability score for that 1 second in time, but it translates to your Heart rate variability translates to a stress that you're underscore, which translates to a depletion of battery or regeneration of battery. But the ones that don't include this, and it's not on this specific list because body battery is somewhat of a universal feature, and it is a big feature for Garmin, but the ones you don't want to look at is any of the watches not mentioned on this list. So you don't want to go back to a Fenix 5 or a Fenix 3 or even the Forerunner 645 because it doesn't have the body battery feature. VivoActive 3 I don't think had body battery features. It was added to the Instinct one. So don't look at any old watches if you want one of this new primary features, which thankfully is across a number of watches. So now let's look at the sleep and sleep score, which is on a little bit more of the watches, but now it's cutting out some certain watches in the category. So let's talk about it. Okay, so sleep and sleep score. So the first we'll start with is the sleep. Garmin's always had this. So it's always had this sleep with these 4 sleep stages, and now they're adding things like pulse ox and respiration rates, but they've always had this backbone of sleep and the sleep stages themselves. So you can see just the stages of sleep, but the thing that has changed over the last year and a half is that they purchased a company called Firstbeat, and Firstbeat is a very, very long-standing analytical company in writing algorithms for health and wellness and training. So all of the sleep estimates started getting, I believe, more accurate. Now that's, so this is what's called advanced sleep stages or advanced sleep tracking because it's written by Firstbeat and their algorithms flow in to give you these informational pieces here. But the more important thing is this piece. So this is the sleep score, which is based on a bunch of factors, 8 physiological factors for what the impact of your last night's sleep did on your body. And you can see that it takes all these things into account. So when we all have looked at different devices that have sleep stages and we go, okay, is an hour and 8 minutes of deep sleep good or not? Well, here it tells me it's good, but it takes all the factors and it says, well, what is my overall score? So it says it's a fair. So you can obviously go back and see when I got really bad sleep, 78. That's actually a really good sleep. And then a 24. So it shows you when you are beaten up or down in the dumps, and it gives you an indication of really all these things that we don't know how to break down, how much deep, how much light, how much REM, and our heart rate variability or the body battery feature. So it can help us to have much, much more useful insight into that. And the sleep score is only available on a few devices, as well as the updated sleep analytics on a few devices or a more bigger set of devices. But let's talk about which has. So there you can see the sleep, but not just the sleep, because a lot of watches, it is now saying it's using advanced sleep tracking, which should mean that it's Firstbeat's algorithm, which means so originally Garmin designed their algorithm and wrote it themselves. And it was just not great when compared to, this is like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, compared to like Fitbit and some of the other offers that were doing a better job with sleep tracking. So the new algorithms from Firstbeat Analytics, and it is much more accurate and much more consistent from what I've found and for what most reviewers have found. Now, it's not the most accurate, but what it translates into is the most useful, and that is a sleep score. So back to the sleep analytics itself. So the sleep analysis now says advanced in little parentheses when you go to the spec page, and it should mean that you're getting the updated sleep analytics or the algorithms written by Firstbeat versus Garmin's in-house algorithms. I haven't been able to verify if it has actually been updated because last I checked, a few watches still didn't have it, and that was the 245, the Instinct, VivoActive 4, and the Venu and Venu SQ. Now, those watches will say on the website advanced in the parentheses when you go to look at sleep tracking. But I, for some reason, just don't totally trust it because I tested a 245 for a long time and whatever. Either way, it says it's there, so we have to just assume that it is there. But what you don't get on all those watches I just mentioned, the 245, the Instinct 1, the VivoActive 4, the Venu, and the Venu SQ is you don't get the sleep score, which tracks 8 different aspects like we looked at. You don't get that sleep score. You don't get a sleep widget. You don't have the ability just to sort of take the raw information, how much deep, how much light, how much REM, how much awake time, and translate it to an actionable, worthwhile value that could correlate to having some awareness of what impact or betterment your sleep did. And so that is a huge piece. Now that I'm tracking it and now that I've had it for a while, and we'll talk about what watches it's on, but now that I've had it for a while, I can see that it has significant value over a lot of watches that just tell you your sleep stages but don't give you action. And even more than that, on the sleep score itself, it is actually giving me hard-lined evaluations. So in tracking it alongside other watches like specifically Fitbit or, Amazfit watches or Huawei watches, those all give sort of like high scores. No matter what my sleep looked like, high scores, 70s, 80s, 70s, 80s. And the Garmin is giving me failure. You got a 32 on your last night's sleep, and you might see that in the video. Now I got a little bit better last night. But, totally rigorous evaluation, not just looking at like how much time in deep sleep, but a culmination of multiple things, and that's hugely beneficial. So the last thing we're gonna look at is training dynamics. And training dynamics, I'll spell out for you before we look at the details, includes the training effect, so the evaluation of that one little workout you did from an aerobic impact and an anaerobic impact. So that is not available on multiple watches. So training effect, aerobically and anaerobic, the impact of that one workout, and then recovery time. So how much recovery time do you need because of the level of exertion and your overall fitness level? How much recovery time should you take before the next hard workout? That's missing from a lot of watches. Additionally, the training load over time and training status. Now, as a CrossFit community, training status is based on getting a VO2 max score. A VO2 max score is requiring that you run or bike outside using GPS. So a lot of us don't like running and biking, or especially not running, but it really is just a 5-minute run. You basically, to keep it going, to get a training status, you do a 5-minute run at a steady state. But the training load that flows from it, or the training status, will say, okay, it's gonna like peg your fitness level based on a VO2 max. Whether you believe that's worthwhile or not, I still found all my information to be worthwhile because it shows you a projection of how much training you should be doing based on your fitness level. Now, all that will still work if you don't go on that 5-minute run. You'll still see your training load over time. It'll still give you a green bar for what range you should be in to improve your fitness. It'll show you, like underperforming if you fall below your overall load expectations. And that's not just time that you should work out, that's the rigor of the workout and the intensity of it, how hard you pushed your heart rate during that time. So, a few of the watches give specifics when it comes to training load type, training load benefits, but the main thing is that training load. So let's look at what it looks like on the app and what the details, and then we'll talk about who has it and who doesn't. Okay, so workout features. We're going to dive into this training status, which is where the training load over time lives. But the first thing we're going to look at is one of the workout evaluations. So this is just a cardio that I copied over and retitled because you can do all sorts of customizations. And you can see the first feature is this training effect, the impact of the workout on my aerobic capacity and my anaerobic capacity. And so it breaks it down. First Beats Analytics, they assess based on your fitness level what the impact was for that workout. So that's the first major piece that you do not get on a lot of watches. Again, that training effect, the impact of that workout on your aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, not available on a lot of watches. And also, what you also don't get is this training status, which is a full evaluation of the training load you're under based on your training volume over time. So here, this is what's so crazy. They added this to the Instinct 2, which is fantastic. You can see your VO2 max, you can see your load, and even some watches have the heat acclimation. But the biggest thing is you can see at the top, it gives me a recommendation, maintaining, and then it gives me a load type or load specificity. And what that is certain watches, specifically this Instinct 2 Solar and even some of the Forerunner, some of the Fenix, or all the Fenix series will actually give you a load focus. So this is not available on the 245, so you're not going to get it there, but you do get the load tracking. So highly aerobic, lowly aerobic or anaerobic workout. You can see your load by type over the last, however many days this is last month, and then your 7-day load. And this is sort of the bread and butter, this is sort of the backbone. You can see where you're at in the range. The green is maintaining or growing your fitness in simple terms, and the score 547 as well as the white line is where you're at in that pendulum. And the last thing that we can't see in the app is your recovery time. The recovery time only lives in the watches that offer it. It only shows up there, and it's basically a countdown timer. If you do 2 workouts back to back, then it'll just add on one on top of the other, and then you go from 22 hours to 36 hours based on your volume, and it sort of tracks down over time. And it's a new improved recovery system, which includes your sleep quality and your body battery, your heart rate variability over time to determine when you can hit that next hard workout, not just the exertion of that one hard workout. So it includes a bunch of different factors, or at least 3 primary significant factors, and Garmin's the only one that's taking all that into account. So there you see it on the training status in the summary page. You see your load over time and that recommendation that I'm just now maintaining. So that is the full suite of training features in simple explanation. Okay, so who has it and who doesn't is a big thing. So this is a primary thing to listen to. All of the fancy watches, all of the watches that many people have grown accustomed to loving, the sort of bread and butter, sort of core watches from Garmin, I would say lots of them do not have it. So the VivoActive series does not have the training components. The Venue 1 and the recent Venue 2 and 2 Plus do not have the training components, as well as the Instinct 1 and Instinct 1 Solar do not have the training components. So you're not going to get all those benefits. You're not going to get all that feature set. You're not going to get those types of things in those series of watches. Now, who does have it is the 245, the 745, the 945, the 945 LTE. The Fenix 6 series has it all, the 7, the Epix, and even the 55 is sort of a side note. The Forerunner 55 has recovery time, but doesn't have any of the other training load features or training features. The training effect like impact, aerobic impact, anaerobic impact. So that is a big line in the sand. So when we talk in a second about who's got a pretty screen and who doesn't, that's where the line stands. The Venue 2 does not have the training aspect, has all the wellness, but doesn't have the training. You look at a good simple bread and butter watch like the VivoActive 4, does not have training aspects. You look at a good classic sort of rugged watch, the Instinct 1 Solar, does not have training effects. And so you're missing an evaluation of the rigor of the workout, the time recovery, and the intensity of your workouts over a period of time. So now let's talk about who has all of those features and some of the differentiators. So all of the features are in the 745, the 945, the 945 LTE, Fenix 6 and 7, Epix, Enduro, and now the Instinct 2. So that brings up the question of what are some of the sideline features and benefits that you would get. So that's the answers. That's who includes all of the features. Everything, in the Forerunner series, not counting the 55 and the 645, everything in the Fenix 6 and 7, Epix, Enduro, and Instinct 2 only provide the full set of features. So let's talk about some of the current sort of sideline benefits and updates and who has it and who doesn't. Okay, so just a few minor points. Number 1, screen technology. So there's AMOLED pretty screens, and the Venue SQ has like an AMOLED looking screen, and then there's transflective memory and pixel. So the dullish screen that's really good in direct sunlight is the transflective screens, and the pretty screen is the AMOLED or AMOLED-like. It limits a few things. So you have the Venue SQ, the Venue 2, and the Venue 2 Plus. So, and then of course the Epix, which is the newest. So that's where the line in the sand is drawn. But if you want all the features and a pretty screen, then you are limited to the Epix and the Epix only. So all the features. If you want all the wellness features and a pretty screen, then you're limited to you would go with the Venue 2 because it also has the latest sensors. So that brings up the second point. So pretty screens, those are the ones that have them. All the features Epix, and you can get the majority of the wellness features only on the rest. Now, heart rate sensor. So the recent Elevate 4.0 heart rate sensor that's now on some of the recent watches is much more accurate if you are only wearing it on the wrist for a CrossFit workout. I always say connect to a chest strap, just connect to a chest strap. But if you want even baseline accuracy, you got to go with the more recent sensor, which is the Elevate 4.0. And I will say clearly the Elevate 2.0, which is on the Fenix 5 and on some of the like the VivoActive 3, I think, it not really worthwhile for tracking accuracy. The 645 old heart rate sensor. So the new heart rate sensor, how do you get that? The 945 LTE, the Epix, the 7, and the Instinct 2. Again, Instinct 2, bring in the latest tech, or the Venue 2. I think I missed that. So when you go to the older sensor, the 3.0 on the Fenix 6, the 3.0 is on the Forerunner 245, 745, and regular 945, you're going to miss some of the accuracy in the more intense workouts if you're not connecting to a chest strap. So that's who's got the best heart rate sensor, the most updated heart rate sensor. And again, the ones that have the whole package and the heart rate sensor are the 945 LTE only, the Fenix 7, the Epix, and the Instinct 2. Now, Mapping is a sideline feature, but just to give you sort of a quick overview, there's only a few watches that have full mapping. That's the 945, the 945 LTE, the Fenix 6, Fenix 7, and Epix. So the Enduro drops the LTE, but you get all the training features, or drops the mapping, but you get all the training features. Next, music. Who's got music? Well, it's not on everything, but it is on a lot of things. The Fenix 6 Pro has music. All the Fenix 7 series, the Epix, the 245 has music, the 745 and the original 945. But the 245, you have to choose between one of the options. And I believe the Enduro, and this may be stupid, I don't know this off the top of my head. I believe the Enduro doesn't have music. No, because it doesn't have a Wi-Fi. So the music is sort of a cool feature because you can download Spotify playlists. So those are the watches that have like a full set of features and music. You could obviously get music on the Venue 2 and the original Venue and some of those other watches not on the Instinct 2 or the original Instinct. Size variations. If you have a smaller wrist, that's another question that comes up a lot. So size variations of watches. Now, like the Epix, the pretty screen, all the benefits you could possibly offer, and the new heart rate sensor. The Epix is only one size at 47 millimeters, but within the Fenix 7 series, you actually have a 42, a 47, and a 51. So you have a range of things. Same thing with the Fenix 6. The 6S, which is small, 42, the 6 regular, 47, and the 6X, which is 51. As well as you have a variation of sizes when you go to look at the Forerunner series more broadly. We'll start at the top. The 945 LTE is actually kind of the best of all worlds because it's actually smaller than the original 945. And just remember with the LTE, you don't have to activate that service. It doesn't change any of the benefits of the watch. It's just also there if you want to activate the service for $6 a month where people can send you a message while you're running. So the 945 and the 945 LTE is sort of a size variation, but the whole Forerunner line has size variation to it. So you got the bigger 945 and now the 945 LTE, and then you got the 745, a little bit smaller down from that, and then the 245, a little baby, and then the 55 is like a baby. So you have this variation of size depending on your wrist, and then across the Fenix 6, across the Fenix 7 line, you have all those things there. Now the Instinct 2 also has a smaller one and a bigger one, and the VivoActive 4 has a smaller one and a bigger one. So if you have a small wrist and you have to have a small size, you can look at those things. One minor thing that is a benefit on some of these watches, or most all of them, is the pulse ox. So pulse ox is not available on the Forerunner 55, and that's tracking your blood oxygen level at any time or primarily when you sleep, and it is not on the original Instinct 1 or Instinct 1 Solar. So pulse ox is a new feature, and the new sensor that I mentioned before actually has more accurate pulse ox or blood oxygen level tracking, in my opinion. And then, added on top of all these things is the ski maps, the golf maps. The Venue 2 Plus is the only watch of Garmin's offerings that has phone call. You can actually talk on the thing, or you can activate voice assistant with Siri or whoever else is out there. So you can activate, that's the only one that has those phone options of all the watches that are out there. So ski maps, golf maps, all those things typically come at the top end in the Fenix 7, Fenix 6, and the Epix. I think the 245's got some variation of those types of things it can possibly do, and that's where you're at. So in summary, your head's spinning, my head's spinning, my head was spinning writing all this stuff because I just thought, oh God, there's so many different features and different things, and where do I go and what do I tell and how do I explain it? So hopefully you can get some value out of all this, but I at least wanted to get the information out there. So simple summary. You want a pretty screen and the latest sensor tech, heart rate sensor, but you're not worried about training, you go with the Venue 2. I would say you just don't ever look at the VivoActive 4 because it's not have all the recent sensors. That you would even look at the Venue 1 over the VivoActive 4 because you just have a duller screen unless you really are dependent on battery life. If you want a pretty screen and all of the features and the latest heart rate sensor, you go with the Epix. If you want an all-in-one device, but you're not worried about screen tech, you go with the Fenix 6, the Fenix 7, the 945, the 945 LTE. You could even go to 745, which doesn't have maps, and now you go with the Instinct 2. You know, obviously you could get a lot of these features with the Enduro, but remember the 945, the 745, the Fenix 6 has the old heart rate sensors, and the 745 doesn't have mapping. So what does that bring us to? You have the well, in my opinion, the best all-around feature set with all the latest tech and a pre-screen in the Epix, and the best feature set all around. And, you know, not as great of a screen, but better than they used to be, the Fenix 7 series. And you have some variation of size. You're like, oh, a smaller wrist, Fenix 7.6. I got a big wrist, or I want a big old thing. And I even get a flashlight thrown in there, the 7X. But what is the most capable? That's another question that comes up. What's the most capable for the money? And it boils down, in my opinion, to two watches. And that's the 945 LTE because it has mapping, it's got music, it's on a lot of things, and it's got the latest heart rate sensors, and it's in a smaller case than the original 945. The 945 LTE, if you're just looking for like a straight run-of-the-mill but has all the stuff, that's an awesome one. And now, the other all feature set missing some things is the Instinct 2. So best bang for the buck from Garmin, in my opinion, to get all the cool features is the 945, Forerunner 945 LTE, and the Instinct 2. Now the Instinct 2 is not going to have music, it's not going to have maps, it's not going to have a pretty screen at all, but you'll get like epic long battery life. But it does have all the training features. It has the sleep features, the sleep score. It's just such a cool device, or such an upgrade to the original device. So with that, that is the jumbled blur breakdown of the Garmin lineup of watches. If you're in the market and you do CrossFit training, or you value intensity of workouts and tracking your training over time and making sure your sleep's up to date and tracking your health on top of all of it, that is the breakdown of the Garmin family of watches, the Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.